So it's time to answer questions asked by $3 supporters for March of 2022. You can ask questions for April at the links below. We'll start on Subscribestar, where Rainbow Asteroids asks, do you think protest is an effective method for change in society? It really depends on what you're protesting and how it's done. Remember that Gandhi was able to achieve most of what he did through protesting, as did the civil rights movement. But protesting can't just be standing around throwing a tantrum. Protests have to be able to inconvenience the people you're protesting. And that was the biggest problem with the Canadian trucker convoy earlier this year. The Canadian government got all triggered that the protesters were actually bothering them, when that's the point of a protest. So they ended up arresting them, beating them up, trampling them with horses, and even freezing their bank accounts. That is what fascist states do. That's what Britain did with Gandhi's protests. The difference is, in the past, that galvanized people to get on the side of the protesters. This time, it didn't work that way, because the press was able to vilify them with outright lies, including a plant with a Nazi flag who was instantly driven out by the protesters, but was followed the whole time by a professional TV camera. So those few seconds of footage were all that they needed. There are a lot of parallels to the January 6th Capitol occupation. Despite the fact that there have been several such protests in the past, such as from the Black Panthers and more recently the Kavanaugh protesters, this time the protest was considered to be a violent insurrection. And now you have protesters who just inconvenienced members of Congress, most of whom are in jail just on charges of misdemeanor trespass, who have been denied bail and had their trials delayed over a year in pre-trial detention for longer than they would have gotten if they were found guilty of their crimes. They say the process is half the punishment, but this time it's a lot more. And they were able to get away with literal fascism in silencing and punishing protesters because of a complicit news media who refused to tell the truth about what happened and continues to do so even as more and more video of the event emerges, most of which continues to be held secret by the Department of Justice. The fact is, if you suppress protests, eventually the people get tired of not being heard and resort to actual violence, which seems to be what they want. And somehow, that spirit the Indians had with Gandhi and blacks and others had with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King seems to be almost completely absent today, because the news media has forced a silent majority afraid to speak up. Thomas Urbanski asks, what do you think about the FIRE movement? Should it be more widespread, or is it good only for a small group of people? It has good and bad. The idea of saving up money to have a comfortable life later is, of course, good, but I'd much prefer the methods mentioned in The Millionaire Next Door. I mean, if you can swing an early comfortable retirement, then bully for you, but that's probably just a best-case scenario, and you never know what'll happen. 5 years after you retire, you're hit by a drunk driver or something, and a lot of that savings gets depleted. Then what? The problem is, if you're out of the workforce for that long, it's just going to be that much harder to get another job, let alone a well-paying one. So always consider the disaster scenario as well. More than that, there have been plenty of times in history when the interest rates just aren't with you. What if you planned it all out so that you can retire on a 4% return and there's another Great Depression or something, or hyperinflation hits? Again, you need to consider all the scenarios. Personally, even if I had been in a position to retire early, I probably wouldn't have. There's just something in me that needs to be productive. And if you're truly productive, you should be able to monetize it, right? Agony asks, what cloud storage do you recommend? Forthwith. Nice closing. Forthwith! Is that like Stan Lee's Excelsior? Anyway, always remember that the cloud means someone else's computer. And I haven't really found one that ticks off all the boxes I would want. The cloud services I use the most are Mediafire and Google Drive, but I don't really think I'd trust either one for all my needs. So my general advice is, if you're using it for a specific purpose, like a project you need to collaborate with others on, look at what everyone else is using. If they're using Dropbox, then use that, and if need be, get the paid service for the duration. For my own files, I have two solutions that aren't cloud storage. One is SyncThing, which is an open source file syncing service. It's secure and free, even when syncing files over the internet. So that might be a good free alternative for your personal needs. But there isn't a central storage, and you need at least one of the synced computers to be on at the time if you want to get the updated files. The other solution I use is my Synology NAS, which currently is giving me 26 terabytes of storage with room to expand. It efficiently services my home network and lets me access my files securely from the internet as well. But that's a fairly expensive solution that isn't for everybody. So I hope all that helps, even though I don't think there's one definitive answer. Over on Patreon, Darth Vega asks, back when Piers Morgan was on his anti-gun crusade 10 years ago, he said many times that the UK gun death rate was around 35 people a year. Is this true? Also, I've heard that the UK gun death rate was just as low years before the ban was in place. Am I right in making that assumption? Thanks. Yeah, this has been really hard to find statistics on lately. I can't really find consistent statistics for gun deaths, but we can look at violent crime rates and compare them to the passage of various gun control laws. But that's very involved, so I'm going to deal with that in a dedicated video. Look for it very soon. Finally, that one guy asks, I've heard you say on the channel and in the Discord that you support a peaceful transition into anarchism, and I have two questions about that. Do you think it's realistically possible for that to even happen when most tyrannical governments have to be overthrown both in history and in the modern era? And do you think a violent revolution against the state would be unethical? It wouldn't be unethical since you're defending against an aggressor, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea. Remember, violence is the tool of the state. They are good at it. When you decide to use violence against them, it's like stepping into the ring with Tyson Fury. You really like your chances on that? The transition I envision is something that's already happening. People building alternatives. Cryptocurrency is an excellent example. Again, the news media, being completely in bed with the state, spew off FUD and lies to say it's all about criminals and money laundering and all sorts of mean, nasty, ugly things, and it's just a bubble that only neckbeards fall for, and it doesn't have any real value or use whatsoever. In reality, I can use Dash to purchase goods and services at almost any vendor in America with the Dash Direct app. The virtual MasterCard is free, but they also have a lot of e-gift card options for tons of stores, which you can use to save usually like 1 to 5% on the purchase, sometimes more as you can see. Whereas government spins us into inflation and poverty and says it's our fault. Battered voter syndrome. If you're ever wondering what more you can do to empower yourself and others and reduce the power of the state, look at whatever it is they're screeching about at the time. So that's it for another month. Thanks for watching, and please hit like, subscribe, and the bell, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. You'll also find the links to my Patreon and Subscribestar there, so you can become a regular supporter and get all my content early and ad-free, and you can also get other benefits like special Discord access, as well as monthly AMAs and shoutouts. Thanks again, and until next time, stay strong and be free.